Good morning, everybody. Chris, Ron here to talk about NFL futures and seasonal bets. We've had a few podcasts in the past, and we've talked about Pythagorean theorem. We've talked about different teams, free agency, and now we want to put it all together for everybody. And Chris, today we're going to talk about when to pull the trigger, when not to pull the trigger, what we've done, what we're thinking, because we have a lot of information already out there. And not much more is going to change between now and August. So I thought we could go division by division, looking at some of the teams and where they stand and what we think of them right now. Chris, how are you doing today?
Oh, well, I'm doing okay. And football can't get here fast enough because this baseball and basketball and hockey is driving me nuts. But looking ahead, you want to pull the trigger and you want to fire away, but sometimes it's just easier to be a little patient and take your time, because I think when you're talking about this time of season, it's all about the value. Wouldn't you agree?
I'd agree with that. Turnover, there's been so many player trades, a lot of new quarterbacks in different places. We've talked a lot about the wide receivers being traded. So there's a little bit of uncertainty about chemistry for the teams. And that really has to factor in when we're looking at season wins. But the other factor that comes into me is public perception. If you know a team already is on the ins or on the outs, how long can you wait if you have an opinion on a team where you know the season win total or the divisional win total has reached its peak one way or another? And that's the balancing act that we have to face.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the way I look at the futures markets, the divisional odds, that type of stuff, and even the season win totals a little bit. Is sometimes you know who you're going to bet and you can wait, because the public is going to keep moving this market. And while we're staying on top of this, we know where the market's going to go. I think the only futures bet that I've made at this point is the New York Jets over, just because I feel that the public perception is that they're going to be better than they were last year. They had a great free agency, and there's momentum behind that betting line that I bet over 5.5, and it's strengthening, and I believe that we'll see sixes, and I can come back on it and just play the number. And for me, that's the kind of stuff I'm looking for with certain teams, in addition to just betting the sides that I like. So I may not necessarily strongly believe in a bet that I'm going to make in one of these markets, but I believe that the market will.
Yeah. The great point you made, betting the number is more important right now necessarily than having an absolute firm opinion. You pretty much know that you don't like the other side, but it doesn't mean somewhere down the road you say, wait a second, this is more 50-50 than I thought it would be. And the other thing that plays in with betting the number is, as more books come out with season win totals, I look for outliers. So if I see the Jets have moved to 6 in a number of books and there's still a 5.5, and I know that 5.5 is eventually going to be juiced up or moved to 6 because of public perception, I may do the same thing. I may go up on that one as well. Since you've talked about the AFC East, I'll let everybody know that I don't think I pulled the trigger on anything in that division. I'm not an overbetter. We've talked about this before. Most of my plays are going to be under due to the fact that seasonal win totals tend to be skewed toward the over, and you can find more value on the unders. If I saw Buffalo at 11, which I never saw, it's been mostly 11.5, and I believe that's going to be juiced because they're going to be public. If I saw them at 11, I would have possibly dipped my toes in on that one. Miami, I was considering under, but I like what the offense has done through free agency. They've rebuilt it in a 49ers way with the new coaching staff. So basically, I'm on the sidelines in the AFC East, but I understand why you played the Jets, and I agree with you completely. We've seen the floor for their season win number. It's not going to go back down.
Yeah, I think so.
So if you want to go to the next division, if you want to go to the AFC North with Baltimore, Cincinnati, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, I have made 2 plays already. And I can explain that, and then you can comment on them. I have played Cincinnati under the 10 wins. Like you said, not necessarily because I believe Cincinnati is a terrible team. They're a nice team to root for right now, but they barely squeezed by to get that divisional number 1 seed last year. And now they're going to play that first place schedule. They've got the Super Bowl blues, having lost the Super Bowl. They've got a revamped offensive line that they're going to have to deal with. Their uncommon opponents are Dallas, Kansas City, and Tennessee, which means no one else in the division will play those 3 teams. If you contrast that to Baltimore, who has a 4th place schedule, their uncommon opponents are the New York Giants, new coach, Denver, new coach, Jacksonville, new coach. So my decision on Baltimore was whether to bet them over the season wins, or would I get more return on investment by going plus 240 and plus 225 on them to win the division. And that's the way I went with them. I think they have a better than plus 240 chance to win the division based on Jackson being healthy, based on their 4th place schedule, uncommon opponents, and their draft, which just ended, and people remarked on how good it was. So those are pretty much the 2 plays that I've made. Any comments on that?
What's the Baltimore to win the division?
To win the division, it's anywhere from, I've seen plus 200, but I got it at plus 240. There's also a lot of plus 225s, which I did as well.
I pulled the gun too early and probably played it before divisional odds were even out. I played Baltimore to win AFC and Super Bowl at really nice numbers. But in retrospect, probably the wrong moves, because the AFC is just strengthened. And I did it for the same reasons you like Baltimore. Obviously, we've got the last place schedule. We're going to have a healthier team. We knew they were going to fill some holes. And admittedly, I wouldn't play the same things, even though I still have great numbers anybody would want on the Baltimore to win. But I think keying in on that division is obviously the better way to go there.
Any thoughts at all on Cleveland, which really doesn't have a number right now, or Pittsburgh?
You know what? I'm not down on Pittsburgh. I want to do more work with Pittsburgh. I'm optimistic on Pittsburgh for some reason. I just feel like they've kept enough tools, and I think the quarterback situation is in better shape than they realize. And combining that with their additions, I'm not a Debbie Downer on Pittsburgh yet. So I'm not done with my work by any means, but my instinct is to not undervalue Pittsburgh in that situation.
I think this is a great example, Chris, of it's worth it to wait. The market's not going to be moving right now. And why not gather more information? Why not find out what their rotation is going to be? Why not take a deeper dive into where they're going with the schedule and everything else? Let's just wait and see how it plays out.
Yeah, I agree.
So if we go to Houston, Jacksonville, Indy, Tennessee, an interesting dynamic has happened over the last few weeks. Indy has become the favorite to win that division. Agree or disagree with how the market has moved there?
Well, yeah, you have to agree, because I think Tennessee is lost its parts. I think that they lost their mojo a little bit. The wheels were kind of wobbly going into last year. They never reached the top 10 in my metrics last year. They did a lot of things with smoke and mirrors and just got themselves in great situations. And on top of it, they've had some player loss. So, and it just feels like their balloon is deflating. Whereas Indy is going full force forward. And the other 2 teams, yeah, they may be a little bit better, but they don't have enough to compete for the division.
Yep, I would agree with that too. The market has subtly moved. I don't have an opinion on any of their totals right now, but let's go to the other 2 teams. We know Jacksonville and Houston had very rough years last year. And based on the market, everybody thinks Jacksonville will rebound and Houston will stay about the same. Any thoughts with those two teams?
Yeah, I think I got a little over enamored with what Jacksonville was doing with the money they were spending, and they had some energy behind them, and I became pretty optimistic. I actually may have found like a cheap over bet that I placed early. I don't think so though, but my instincts were, hey, I think this team's going to be a lot better because they played under a crap coach, Meyer, that they didn't want to win for, and they were hit with injuries everywhere. They didn't get that first year training, and they never got together. They basically were an empty vessel. So you bring a good coach in there, you bring all these new players in, and sure, it's going to take them some time to adjust, but they should be much better than they were. I just feel that way. I think that you're going to get 2 years of added players together with a first-time coaching benefit. What do you think there?
Well, I think it's interesting. For me, I have to weigh the balance of the subtraction of Urban Meyer in that culture has got to be worth 3 or 4 wins, especially since they brought in a lot of players in free agency. The negative with that is I'm such a stickler for having really good tight ends and really good offensive linemen to protect rookie and second-year quarterbacks. And I don't think Jacksonville did enough with that offensive line. So I'm a little worried about the season win total, but to me, there is a difference between Jacksonville and Houston. And Houston, yes, again, 20 or 30 new players for the second year in a row. There's no chemistry. I'm not a fan of how Lovie Smith guides the defense. I'm not a fan that he's going to be coordinator and coach at the same time. I'm still looking into the market for going under for Houston, but probably leaving Jacksonville alone.
Yeah, I'm anticipating boring football again in Houston, and again, I agree with what you said about Jacksonville. They could be a little sweetheart sleeper team for some people, but not really a sleeper team, like you indicated.
So now we go to the AFC West, and it's an interesting dynamic because it was an arms race in the offseason with everybody getting bigger and better and faster and new quarterbacks. How do you shake all that out? Because every team's going to claim victory in the offseason, but they all can't go to the playoffs. So where are you stand on that?
They can't? Can't every team from a division make the playoffs?
Well, the other divisions are going to have to suck badly.
You know what? This is going to boil down to the injuries and who stays healthy in that division. And it's, like you said, it's an arms race. And I've seen people that actually think the Raiders are the best team in that division now. And I don't agree with that in the least, but it's going to be very interesting to see how it plays out. I don't see a reason or a need to be pulling triggers with anything in that division at this point. What you're going to want to be doing is looking for, as you referenced, slow-moving books, value, once you realize something is going to be happening and you know you can follow along safely if you believe it.
Yeah, this is one division that I'm going to wait completely because I need to complete my entire NFL draft analysis, which includes 2 pages for each team, but includes at the end kind of a run through as how I think the season is going to go and how all the parts are going to fit together. And that's when I'm going to say, well, wait a second, I don't think they did enough, or I think they did more than enough. Denver, I really like the fact that their last coach is out. He cost them a lot of victories. Russell Wilson is there. But that's a huge spike to think that they could go from 7 wins to 9.5 or 10. I mean, their number is just so high right now. And the entire AFC, they're only playing 8 home games as opposed to 9 like they did last year. And Denver's home field advantage is reduced by 1. And then the Raiders did a lot of things in the offseason, went sideways in the draft. And I still don't know how all those parts are going to come together. So I have a lot more work to do on this division, and I'm not ready to say anything yet.
It seems to me like the Chargers quietly did what they needed to do and just steadied their ship a little bit, all in the right direction. But all these teams kind of made the right moves, and it comes down to the chemistry issues and the health issues.
Do you think, looking not at season wins, but if I were looking at the Chargers, that maybe there's some value in winning the division?
What are their current odds?
I want to say around plus 240, plus 250, which means that you'd probably have to be right. You'd say if the division was run 7 times, the break-even point would be that they'd win it twice out of 7 times, 28.6.
Yeah, then there is. I would say there's some value there.
Yeah, I have to look at special teams and see what are they going to do. They have a new special team coach, but I think, and there is going to be some public liking of them. I don't know when to pull the trigger. I'm just going to have to complete it. I'll make a decision in June, but that's the only thing I would be looking at right now.
It's remarkable how they had such problems filling their stadiums, but they do get a lot of public love. They do.
Yeah. Hey, 8 home games is not necessarily a negative on their part. Why not travel on the road? They're better on that. Is Dallas still the odds-on favorite to win the NFC East? Where are you?
No way. No. How many years has it been in a row? It's been since like 2004 that a new divisional winner each year. Is that correct?
I don't have the answer to that, but the question there is, coaching gets in the way of all these teams and they just take turns.
Yeah, I don't. There's no way that Dallas is the odds-on favorite. I haven't looked at the odds recently for the division on that, but I think Philadelphia, certainly, has improved themselves. I'm still at a wash on Washington, though. What? I haven't looked. I haven't deep dove on them. Do you have any input on how well they actually have done?
Well, I kind of think they went sideways everywhere.
That's what
Wentz
I thought.
is considered an upgrade over Taylor Heineke and everything else they had, and he probably is an upgrade on the field. But as far as a leader, is he really an upgrade? Does he really rally the troops? Did they do anything in the draft that's exciting?
It didn't seem that way.
Philadelphia's draft was small, but if you look at it a little bit more closely, they could plug and play 2 or 3 starters right away. And the guys that got their roster better over the long run, in the short run, did they do as much as Philadelphia did with 2 or 3 players? So it's kind of a mess there. A lot of public love for the Giants right now. Again, I'm not big on overs, so I just kind of look at it and say, okay, fine, the Giants may be better, but I'm not going to be in that market.
Right.
So I don't have a big opinion on this division.
No, I don't either. I just don't think Dallas is anywhere close to a lock to win that division.
Yeah. So if we go to Green Bay's division, I'm starting to form a lot of opinions on this division. I have not pulled the trigger on Chicago, but I'm really, really thinking I'll be ending up on the unders for this. And I may have missed the boat. This is one I may have missed the boat. There were some 7.5s that were out there to begin with. They dissipated right away. And now we're seeing 7 and 6.5. Ouch. And I'm not, even though I may miss the 7s, I'm willing to wait to make sure I have an absolute opinion on where they stand and how they stand in relation to Minnesota and Chicago.
Well, and let's not forget there's an alternate market out there that usually has more value than you can get betting the straight market.
Yeah, that is true. One of the things I did do, I've talked about Cincinnati and Baltimore, so I did play Minnesota under 9, and it's kind of like your jet play. The market's not going to go higher than 9 on Minnesota. Nothing they did in the draft made people stand up and say, go Minnesota, go Minnesota. And their chief rival, Green Bay, finally did something right during the draft. So people aren't going to be down on Green Bay. So I think the ceiling is 9 on Minnesota. They have drastic changes at head coach. You can argue that not one player they've signed in free agency or in the draft is going to be ready to go right now. They have the second place schedule. Detroit looks improved. Second year for Justin Fields, even though I'm not high on Chicago and I may go under on them. Fields can't be any worse than being thrown into the fire last year. Green Bay looks like they've turned the corner. As long as Rodgers is healthy, maybe they actually got enough players to make the team better moving forward. I'm just not high on Minnesota.
I'm just very pleased with myself that I had some impulse control, because at one point I was thinking to myself, boy, that Minnesota can really win this division. They should certainly contend, and I was very high on Minnesota, and I wanted to bet some anti-Green Bay, and it just was a mistake. I mean, you're exactly right. The tires deflating out of Minnesota at this point with support, and any support for them is headed down for the time being. And Green Bay did the things they needed to do. The Lions are certainly going to be improved. How much, we don't know. We get to see them on Hard Knocks in preseason. That'll be interesting. But the spirits are amazingly high with the Lions. And let's not forget, they played a difficult schedule last year. So there's really no excuses for them not to do pretty well. I mean, I have high expectations for the Lions personally, but I'm jaded because I'm a Lions fan. And the Bears, I honestly think the Lions are a better team than the Bears.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. It's the Lions should be. I'm not a big Goff fan, and I know he padded stats in third and fourth quarters, but injuries are always an excuse for every team. But if you look at the Lions, the injuries they had were to key positions as opposed to other teams when they weren't, and cluster injuries play a part as well. So I would agree there. It's just Minnesota. There's something I just don't like about where they are. And if you look at season win bets and you look at whole numbers, if you go under 9, to lose that bet, they have to go 10-7.
Yeah.
And when we look up and down as to who they're going to play and when they're going to play them, 10's a stretch for me. So
I'm not done with the schedule analysis on any of these teams, so I'm going to be doing that, very carefully. But I'm going to have a hard time believing that they get 10 wins.
When we look at Tampa, New Orleans, and the rest of that division, a lot of things have changed recently that make me glad that I'm pretty quiet on that division. What are your thoughts with what's recently happened? Matthew signing, for example, for New Orleans, and Brady coming back.
Yeah, exactly. You just don't know what's going to happen with these teams. There's a lot of, we don't know their Gronkowski's coming back, and a couple of other players may come back, and people are sitting on the sidelines with various teams. And, I thought the Saints were going to go into disaster mode, and I'm not entirely sure they are at this point. There's reasons to believe that they may actually come out of this okay. Atlanta's got no hope as far as I'm concerned. They've done nothing but the wrong things. I'd like to sit back and just watch it a little bit.
I had mixed opinions on Carolina. That was my one overplay last year, and I lost it. I had 8 underplays. Those went very, very well.
Yeah, I mean, one of the issues is Atlanta and Carolina. How can you have the 2 worst teams in the league in the same division? I mean, there is a possibility of that happening. Well, maybe not with the Houston involved, but those 2 teams are very down, and that helps the Saints and Tampa.
Yeah. Well, what Tampa did and what Tampa may still do with Ndamukong Suh and so on, and what New Orleans did with Matthew and really adding some ready-to-go talent, Olave, the wide receiver, and so on, solidified where I am with Atlanta. And so the last play I made was Atlanta under 5.5. The public perception is not going to push it to 6. It touched 6 briefly, but now it's 5.5 and 5. We had a chart a couple of months ago about 1-score luck, and Atlanta, if you take out 1-score luck, would have been something like 1-15 in their first 16 games. Yeah. So they were even worse than what we thought, and they're not getting any better. They've subtracted Matt Ryan at quarterback. So I did pull the trigger because the other teams looked like that they got solid in terms of Tampa bringing back Brady and what New Orleans did with a very veteran offense. I just think Atlanta and Houston right now are the worst teams in the league.
Well, and we've got the the two best teams that have coaching changes. So, we don't know how that's going to come into play. I mean, I don't anticipate much of a difference with Tampa, but the Saints could be a little bit of a wild card with their coaching change. So I'm a little apprehensive there.
Yeah, I think I got the best of the number that's left at 5.5, but I'm willing to concede that I may need to take a second look. Let's wrap this up with the last division. The Rams are the ex-Super Bowl champs. The 49ers are going to start a brand new quarterback. Seattle's going to start a who knows at quarterback. And Arizona has all kinds of internal, external stuff going on. So how do you shake that out?
Well, I think nobody has any confidence in Seattle. So I expect that trend to kind of continue. And I'm not so sure about that. I want to dig deeper. I'm really anti-Seattle, but I've flipped where I'm not so sure they're going to be as bad as people think they are. Some way, somehow, maybe they pull it together. Now, I could be entirely wrong. I'm just open-minded to trying to think that way. So I'm not, don't quote me that on anything. It's just, I really want to take a closer look at Seattle because they are a domino effect on what happens in that division. And the Rams had a lot of luck last year, and I actually tweeted out that as a Lions fan, I feel sorry for San Francisco fans just because, 2 years ago they were decimated with injuries. They were a really, really good team, and just everything just hit them at the wrong times. And then now they've got this quarterback controversy, which I don't even think there should be. I think they should be running two quarterbacks. Lance is not ready to go. All the people behind the scenes are saying they're unimpressed by him. You need two quarterbacks anyway to protect against injury. What are they going to really get for Garoppolo anyway? Yeah. And, the Samuel issue. I mean, you got to feel for that team. And Arizona has put Murray in the best possible position he can get. They've given him every tool possible. But is it going to be down to the coaching fade that we've seen for 6-7 years in a row with Kingsbury? Those are the questions.
Friendly reminder to everybody who likes season win totals over, one quarterback injury ends it for you, whether it be Aaron Rodgers, whether it be Tom Brady, in this case, Kyler Murray, or even in San Francisco, once Jimmy G leaves, and I assume he leaves, and Lance being more of a running quarterback, if something happens, the dynamics completely change. That's why, for me, it's a lot easier to play the unders. The team I'm going to do the deepest dive on that division is Arizona. Today, I saw an under 9.5 at -160, but most of their numbers are 9. I just don't know. I like what you said, and I certainly feel the same way. There's so many toys in Kyler Murray's tool bag right now because that offense is going to be incredible. I just don't like the coaching staff. I'm going to do a deeper dive on how the schedule lays out. I know they play. I think I remember that their games are against the AFC West, which is Murderers Row and so on. Just got to do a deeper dive there to get going.
Yeah.
So
and one of the other things I like about Seattle is they play the fourth place schedule. So
you're right. And they're going to be competitive.
I just don't understand why Carroll would stick around. If that's a teardown, why is he sticking around? What does he need to do? He's 71 now? I mean, come on.
Yeah. I think he likes the underdog role. I think he likes to make something out of nothing. The challenge. He's always been about the challenge.
Well, that could be it. And he hasn't.
Yeah. Well, Chris, we've laid it all out, our thought processes. And I think for me, just saying it out loud has really been very helpful in terms of how we're thinking. And hopefully the people watching have got an understanding about how we go about doing this, why we pulled the trigger on some things, and why we're waiting on some things. Any final thoughts as we wrap up where we are right now in terms of the futures market?
I would like to just point out that we didn't do a whole lot of prep on this show, but I think that that's good because we're not completely absorbed in this. We've got other sports, other things to do, and these videos are good for refreshers. Not only we're trying to help whoever's listening, but for us, and it's important to just kind of touch base along the way so that you don't pop in later on and get sidetracked by these narratives, these talking points and stuff. You want to know where they came from, where they built up, and kind of stay ahead of some of this information that kind of filters out throughout the course of the summer.
Yeah, I think we're reinforcing the value of networking. Certainly, me networking with you and with Ted and with everybody else we do in the industry, how we talk these things out is so important. And one video we do builds on another. We've got a couple others that are going to come out relatively soon. They're going to touch on things when we touch on the Pythag theorem, when we touched on free agency in the draft. Everything is cumulative, and that's where we are in terms of our decision making now, and our decision making moving forward is going to be based on this and our deeper dive into the teams that we've talked about. So Chris, thanks. Another good show, and we'll see everybody down the road.
Thanks.